The shocking breakup. Moving on and healing, my girlfriend's apology after betraying. Over the course of the next month and a half I attended 5 more sessions with Sarah. And by the end of those sessions we think we narrowed in on why Sarah may have cheated. Not that there really is an excuse, but at least something that might make sense of this ball of yarn. Apparently the healthier and more confident I got, the less confident Sarah got. She loved me so much, but she noticed that I was getting more attention from other women due to my newfound confidence. She acknowledged that I never entertained any of them. And was always quick to say that I had a girlfriend. But still, the roles had been reversed. While at the beginning I thought Sarah was too good for me, she eventually started to think I was too good for her. She had been battling with this feeling for a while. I asked her how I never picked up on this, and she told me that she tried very, very hard to hide these insecurities. That she was too embarrassed to come to me with these feelings. That I might drop her right then and there if she did. As a result of these new difficult feelings, the marriage conversation was just the cherry on top. She took my reluctance to get married as a sign of rejection. That she wasn't important enough to marry and that I was only stringing her along until I found something better. She created a self-fulfilling prophecy. She allowed herself to fall victim to Josh's love bombing because she was looking for an escape. A justification to end the relationship before I did. But obviously after it happened, she regretted it instantly. She was overcome with so much guilt that she could no longer hide her insecurities. And that is when I started to pick up on things. She was just so ashamed of herself and didn't want to accept that she actually did this. I won't lie, by the end of this, I was so confused. Sarah had always been this confident, self-assured woman. She was direct, but in a nice way. She was deliberate with what she said. So to hear that this beautiful, confident woman had started to emotionally shrivel up in the shadow of my growing confidence was heartbreaking. But I didn't feel responsible, and both Sarah and the therapist insisted that I wasn't either. It was good that I got healthy. And that Sarah's deteriorating self-esteem stemmed from her own issues. But still I couldn't help but feel bad. And it only made me want to help her more. After that 6th session Sarah was feeling stable enough to be there on her own. She felt like because of my being there it really helped her to come to terms with everything and has finally started to not have her guilt following her around like a storm cloud anymore. Her therapist and I agreed. Her therapist thanked me for even offering to come with Sarah at all. That it showed my character and that Sarah was lucky to have a friend who would care this much. They even agreed that she no longer needed to come to her sessions every week and are now on a bi-weekly schedule. It has only been a little over a month since Sarah and I had reconnected, but there were already vast improvements. She was starting to sleep better and was even starting to eat more. It would be a while before her appetite returned, but she was making efforts. We started hanging out a couple times a week. We agreed to keep time together a couple days a week because we didn't want to rush into things. We thought it would just be the healthiest path for us both at this time. She would come over to my place to eat and watch a movie, or I would go over to her house and have dinner with her and her mom. Sarah wasn't ready to go out in public with me yet. She was scared someone she knew would see her with me and would make a scene. I tried to tell her that I wouldn't let that happen, but she still resisted. So I told her that was fine and we could move at her pace. About 3 months in, Sarah was finally ready to try and make amends with her old friends. The ones she pushed away or angered. At this point she was back to eating healthy meals. She was sleeping at night. She was starting to take care of herself. But she still had a timidness to her. When it was just the two of us, or us and her mom, she opened up more. But in public she would retract back in. She was always afraid of a confrontation. But eventually her therapist said that she should reach out and try to mend some bridges. I agreed to help with this. Mark and Danielle were having a small get-together. No more than 10 people if that, they said. I asked if Sarah wanted to come. I knew she wanted to see Danielle. She said she felt bad for not getting back to her after she reached out. Sarah wasn't sure about it. But I told her that I would vouch for her. That I forgave her, so why shouldn't they? She said that she was really scared, but that she would go. On the grounds that I don't leave her side and if she feels overwhelmed, we leave. I agreed to these terms. Now I didn't tell anyone that I was bringing Sarah. I knew that Mark and Danielle would probably be okay with it. They still tried to have a relationship with her after the breakup. But Sarah went no contact. It was the others in the group that I was more worried about. I knew that most of our friends had a very low opinion of her. But it had been a year, so at this point, they had to be over it. Or so I thought. We got to their house. Before we got out of the car, I looked at Sarah and asked her if she was sure she was ready for this. She took a deep breath and said she was. We got out of the car and started heading to the backyard. Before we came around the corner, Sarah waited. She wanted me to come out and just try and keep everyone calm before she walked out. I came around the corner and our buddy Paul noticed me first and greeted me. In unison, everyone else greeted me as well. Before I got to them, I stopped and asked them all for their attention. I told them that I had brought someone with me. They all started making ooh la la noises and making kissy faces. We all laughed and I told them to shut up. I told them that they actually know this person. They all kind of got excited and asked me who it was. I told them that there is a chance they won't be a big fan of who I brought with me. Their interest just kept growing. I told them that this was my decision, and that I wanted them all to keep an open mind. They all said okay, but in a reluctant kind of way. I turned around and walked to the corner of the house. I motioned for Sarah to come out. As soon as she walked around the corner, everyone started straining their eyes to see who it was. The sun was setting, so it was a bit hard to see. Danielle was the first to recognize her. She stood up and said, "Is that Sarah?" Everyone just stood from their seats. Sarah kind of froze and didn't know how to respond. She was afraid they were going to rush her and start yelling at her. Which honestly wasn't too far off from what happened. They all started walking towards us, not in a rushed pace, but in a confused, what is going on kind of way. They all just looked at me for an explanation. Some of them asked me why I brought her here. I told them that I recently ran into Sarah. I felt like it had been long enough and it was time to completely move on from what happened. That this wasn't us getting back together, but instead trying to mend a friendship. I couldn't figure out if everyone was accepting this. Their faces all just seemed to be a sea of emotions. I told them that since I was the one that got hurt, that if I'm willing to forgive her, that everyone here should be capable of doing the same. Some of them just grumbled and went and sat down. Some just looked at me, then Sarah, then back at me and then shrugged. They looked at Sarah and said it was good to see her, then walked away. This seemed to bring a small smile to Sarah's face. Mark and Danielle definitely stayed and they both just looked at Sarah. She couldn't meet their eyes, but I gave her a nudge with my shoulder. Slowly she raised her head and looked at them. She saw happy smiles looking back at her. Sarah's eyes started to water and she said hi. They said hi back and started to move in for a hug. Sarah still wasn't ready for physical contact, so she flinched. Mark and Danielle retreated a bit, looking confused and concerned. I explained to them that Sarah wasn't big on touching, but it was something we were working on. I paused for a moment, realizing what I had just said. My eyes got wide and I looked at them and said, "Not like that." We all laughed a bit. Even Sarah gave a small chuckle. They looked at Sarah and said they were just happy to see her. That it had been too long. We all headed back to the fire pit and found a place to sit. As usual, we sat around the fire talking about our weeks and sharing stories. Some of us drinking, some of us smoking, and some of us just getting buzzed on life. But this time it was a bit different. People still talked about their weeks and shared stories, but all eyes were fixed on Sarah. And she could feel it. The air was heavy around us. The conversation felt more forced. You could tell everyone just wanted to discuss the elephant in the room. After a moment, Sarah asked if she could use the restroom. Danielle said to go ahead. I asked her if she wanted me to come, but she said it was fine and I should stay. She looked at me, giving me a, maybe this wasn't a good idea kind of look. She walked inside. About 30 seconds after the door closed, I was bombarded by questions. What's going on? What are you doing? Why are you two talking, let alone hanging out? Why would you even bring her here? Are you trying to get back together with her? After being assaulted with these questions for about a minute, I told everyone to calm down and let me explain. They got quiet and sat alert in their seats. I told them about how I saw Sarah at the mall a couple months back and I saw how beaten down she was. That I saw the extent of the damage her mistake had taken on her. That I thought a year is too long to beat herself up over a one-time mistake. I obviously got a couple people asking how I knew it was only once. I told them that I had attended many therapy sessions with Sarah and I knew the whole story. And I wholeheartedly believe that it was the one incident. At hearing that I knew the whole story, they wanted me to tell them. I guess the basics had gotten around, but the only people who actually knew what happened were Sarah, Josh, maybe Stacy, I don't know how much she was told, and myself. But I told them that they would know what happened when Sarah is ready to share it. It's not my business to expose her dirty laundry. It's why I never publicly outed her. They were obviously disappointed at hearing this. Paul just looked at me and said I was too nice. And that I was too good for her. I stopped him right there. I told him that I have never been too good for her. Yes, she made a mistake, but everyone is capable of making mistakes. That doesn't make them bad people. That when we were friends we complimented each other so well. And how I missed my best friend. That all I was looking for was friendship, and that is where I draw the line. That I feel like Sarah had helped me save my own life, and that now I wanted to do the same for her. They asked what if she wants to get back together. I told them that I have been very clear since the mall that this is not me wanting to get back together. That chapter of our lives is over. And that if she is willing to accept me as nothing more than a friend, then we could move forward. They all somehow seemed just to accept this. They understood that I was truly willing to forgive her. There was no point in changing my mind, it was made. As everyone else was shaking their heads in acceptance, Danielle headed inside. Now this is all from Sarah's lips, as I wasn't there. So Sarah went inside, went to the bathroom and splashed some cold water on her face. She was feeling really anxious and felt like she was burning up. She looked in the mirror and told herself she could do this. She left the bathroom and came up to the back door, and that is when she heard it. She walked up as Paul said, "You're too good for her." Then she heard everything else I said after. Little sneak. She told me that she teared up, but they were tears of happiness this time. That is when she knew that I had truly forgiven her. She said that moment was when she thinks her healing truly began. It was at that moment that Danielle walked in. Danielle and Sarah looked at each other. Danielle smiled and told Sarah to sit with her. She asked her how much of it she heard. Sarah told her, and Danielle smiled. She asked Sarah if she truly understands how much I care about her. Sarah nodded her head. Danielle asked if she knew what this could potentially do to me. Sarah nodded. Danielle asked Sarah if she truly regrets what she did and asked if she would ever do it again, regardless of who Sarah ends up with. Sarah looked Danielle in the eyes, gave a serious face, and stated that she would never cheat again in her life. That she has been suffering the repercussions of that mistake for a year and she never wanted to feel that way ever again. Danielle told her that she might never ever feel that kind of heartbreak again. Sarah asked her what she meant. Danielle pointed in my direction and told Sarah that I was a good man. That I obviously still really cared for her, regardless of the fact that she betrayed my trust and slept with Josh of all people. How to do that was just adding salt into the wound. Despite all of that, I am still out there defending her to our friends, asking them to give her another chance. Usually it's the friends asking you guys to give it another chance. Not the jilted ex. Sarah just hung her head. Danielle asked her to look her in the face. Sarah raised her head and looked Danielle in the eyes. Danielle told her to never break my heart again or else she would have Danielle to deal with. They both smiled and Sarah dove in for a big hug. They both squeezed each other tight. I guess Danielle also pointed out that Sarah looked like shit. She said they both got a good laugh out of that. After that they both came out and joined us by the fire. We stayed a couple hours before Sarah said she was feeling tapped and asked if we could leave. We said our goodbyes. Everyone told Sarah how good it was to see her. They all really warmed up to her throughout the night, and I could see how happy it made her. About 6 months after we reconnected, Sarah was doing much better. She was back to her original weight. The dark circles under her eyes were completely gone. Her hair was no longer a tangled mess. She was close to getting her life back on track. I will say that these things did happen gradually at different paces over the course of the 6 months. I am just using the observations from when I first saw her till now. For the most part she was back to being my best friend, but there was still a major hurdle. She was still carrying a huge amount of guilt around with her. She had become decent at hiding it, but I could still see it in her eyes. Especially whenever she looked at me. But aside from that we were back to hanging out all the time. Sarah was coming with me to more of our friends' gatherings. Pretty much everyone accepted her back. Mostly at my request, but eventually they all just saw the light on their own. There were a few who just flat out refused to cut her any slack, but I wasn't really that close to them, so no loss there. We were always at each other's houses. Her mother was all too happy to have me at her dinner table on a more regular basis again. And it was great having her back in my life. Sarah remembered how to smile again and was now doing it all the time. She was actually laughing. She was once again ruling at Candy Crush. She was starting to feel alive again. There was one night where we were at Mark and Danielle's. They were having another small party in their backyard. By this point Sarah was fine mingling on her own at parties, so I no longer needed to be by her side at all times. So I'm on one side of the yard talking to Mark and Sarah is on the other side talking in a small group of friends. While we are talking I just look over and see Sarah. It seems like we both had done it at the same time because we met each other's gaze. We both just laughed and shared a smile. I noticed Mark had stopped talking. So I looked back to him and he was just smiling at me. I asked him why he was looking at me like that. He said he noticed that I wasn't paying attention, and seemed to be distracted. I apologized and asked him to repeat himself. He just looked at me and smiled again. I asked him why he was looking at me like that. He just said Sarah. I said, what about her? He asked me what was going on with us. I told him nothing was going on. We were just friends and that's all. I told him that we have had this same conversation 3 times over the last 3 weeks. How many times did I need to tell him that we had just mended our friendship and that we were just back to being best friends again? That it would never go past that. I could tell he wasn't having any of what I was saying. He asked me why I was lying to myself. I said I am not. That I am firm on this. Then he asked me one of those questions that is so simple, yet so hard to answer at the same time. He asked me why. Why was I so firm on this? I had to actually stop and think about it. I shouldn't have had to do that. I mean, she cheated on me. She betrayed me. She ruined a 1-year relationship and a 2-year friendship. But I actually had to think about it. When it took me a second to respond, Mark hit me with another question, but this one was even more annoying. He asked if I had fallen back in love with her. I told him no, I have not fallen back in love with her. He said that he didn't believe me. I told him I did not care what he believed. It was true. He was about to say something before I cut him off and said, because I never fell out of love with her. He paused, then smiled. I just hung my head and finally admitted it. The first 3 months I had spent that whole time trying to hate her. I had every reason to. But I just couldn't. I was definitely angry with her. Disappointed in her. I felt betrayed by her. I didn't think I could trust her again. But I couldn't hate her. No matter how hard I tried. That I tried keeping the wedding ring open on the nightstand as a reminder of her betrayal. But after the first month, all it did was make me think of our happy memories. And that honestly made me more angry, but I still couldn't hate her. By the end of those 3 months I closed the ring box, stuffed it away in a drawer and decided to just move on. But even through all of that, it wasn't just that I couldn't hate her, but I couldn't stop loving her either. She was the woman who saved my life and showed me what it meant to love and be loved. And how there was never a day that I didn't miss her. He told me I should tell her. I said I couldn't do that. That I had spent all this time making it clear what this was. At this point she had to have accepted that and moved on by now. How it wouldn't be fair to her if she was just now starting to move on. That it would be crossing a boundary. I just gave out any excuse I could think of. He ended the conversation with one last little lemon. He said that Sarah was not the same girl that I brought back into their lives 3 months ago. Hell, she wasn't even the same girl she was when we were dating. She has grown and seems to really want to be a better person. That if I hadn't made the first move and decided to help her that day, she would still be living in misery. That she may have saved my life, but now I have saved hers. We are indebted to each other, and the only way we can pay each other back is to stop denying how we really feel. Then the asshole just walked away before I could even say anything. So on the other side of the yard, Sarah was in a group of people. So again, since I was not there, this is from her point of view. She was in the group talking when our gaze met and we smiled. Danielle, who was standing opposite Sarah, turned around and saw me. She turned back and just saw Sarah smiling. She got Sarah's attention and nodded for her to follow. They broke apart from the group and walked to a small empty space of the yard. Sarah asked Danielle what was up. Danielle just stood there for a moment, a huge smile across her face. Then she asked Sarah if she was still in love with me. Sarah said she flat out said no. That she had moved on and had put us behind her. She was actually considering dating soon. I guess Danielle scoffed at her over this. She asked Sarah why go out looking for a guy when she has a perfectly good one available to her right now. And, added bonus, that I already loved her. I will say, that was pretty bold of Danielle to assume, but she wasn't wrong. Sarah just shook her head. She denied that I had any feelings for her. That I had been very clear from the start what this was. She said she accepted that as truth, regardless of how she actually felt. That's when Danielle called her out and said that she really did still love me. Sarah broke down and just said yes, of course she does. How could she not? I guess Danielle just wore this shit-eating grin on her face. So smug. Danielle tells Sarah that she should just trust that we both are obviously still in love with each other. And that if Sarah can promise that she won't let me slip through her fingers this time, that she would have nothing to worry about. Sarah didn't believe it, but the seed was planted. We did find out later that this whole thing was planned. We have mixed feelings about this. For weeks before this, everyone just started assuming that we had started dating again. Simply because we had gone back to hanging out all the time. It got to the point where we were actually turning down some invites because we would constantly have to avoid the "are you back together" question. And we couldn't go by ourselves, because everyone already knew we were friends again. Apparently our friend group is just a bunch of gossipy bitches. But it would just leave one of us having to deal with the barrage of questions. We honestly could not understand why people kept hounding us about this. We felt like we had made things very, very, very clear with everyone. But it would not stop. It was coming up on midnight and the party was winding down. Sarah and I decided to head out. We said our goodbyes to everyone that was there and we headed out. Our car ride back to my apartment, which is where her car was oddly quiet. I know that I was thinking about everything that Mark was saying, and I know Sarah was thinking about everything Danielle was saying. We were both thinking the same thing, but were unable to actually discuss it in the moment. I think we both thought the other was bothered, because we were usually pretty chatty. We got back to my apartment. We got out of my car and I walked her over to hers. We said our goodnights and gave each other a hug. She turned around to unlock her car and I turned around to head back inside. I made it 4 steps before I stopped. Mark's words had gotten in my head. I couldn't just deny how I felt. I could not just keep lying to myself and saying that I could never be with her again. That I loved her. I always have, and there is nothing I can do about it. So should I just keep making myself miserable by not being with her? Or do I take a chance, give her another shot, and maybe get back that peace I felt like I had been missing? That's what my heart was saying. My head just kept repeating, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" After Sarah opened her car door, she finally noticed that I was just standing there. She said my name, but I didn't respond. She said it again, and again, I didn't respond. She walked up and put her hand on my shoulder and asked if everything was okay. I turned around, looked her in the eyes and told her no. Then I grabbed her face and leaned in and kissed her. I could hear her keys as they fell out of her hand and hit the pavement below. She wasn't really kissing me back, but she also wasn't trying to fight it. To say the least, it was one of our more awkward kisses. I pulled away and her eyes were closed. She opened them, pulled her head back a bit and looked away. She was definitely blushing. She was so red I could still see it in the faint glow of a street lamp. I told her that I'd been wanting to do that since the first night Sam came over. She seemed to be a bit embarrassed by this because she kinda pulled in on herself. I told her that I was sorry if I crossed a line. I just couldn't deny how I felt any longer. I loved her. I have always loved her. I never stopped. And these last 6 months only cemented how I truly felt about her. She started to unfurl a bit. I told her that I just needed to know if she still loved me also. She didn't answer the question. I asked her if she wanted to be with me. Quietly she said she didn't know. She wasn't sure if it was a good idea. I asked her why. She said that maybe our story really is over. Maybe trying to start over will just end up in a subpar sequel. Maybe it's best if we really do just move on and find someone new. I could tell she didn't mean that. I could tell she was holding back. But I couldn't make her express how she felt. She was still vulnerable, and the last thing I wanted to do was make her feel pressured. I told her I understood. I apologized if I crossed a boundary. I told her good night and that we would talk soon. Sarah just nodded and I walked back inside. I just sat on the couch and reflected on what I had just done. I was thinking that I just lost my best friend again. I knew there was a chance that I hadn't, but I still couldn't stop thinking about it. I guess at this point Sarah had picked up her car keys and gotten into her car. She just sat there thinking about what happened. She was trying to figure out what to do, so she immediately called Danielle. She picked up and Sarah just launched into what happened. After Sarah was done, the line was quiet. Danielle wasn't making a noise. Sarah asked if she was there. Then Danielle just gave a cackle and scared the shit out of Sarah. Then I guess Danielle started singing "I Told You So, I Told You So." From what I heard, it was very childish. Sarah told her to shut up and asked her what to do. Danielle asked Sarah why she turned me down. Sarah said she was scared. She doesn't want to hurt me again. Danielle asked Sarah if she really thinks that she would ever do that to me ever again. Sarah, without hesitation, said definitely not. She said that she owed me everything and that she loved me so much and that all she wanted was to be with me. Danielle asked if Sarah was willing to give all of herself to me in our relationship. Sarah said she was. Then Danielle told her to start by giving me her heart. Let's start there. Sarah told Danielle that she was stupid and corny, but right, and she was going for it. So I'm still on my couch, reflecting on what I had done. There is a knock on my door. Which is weird in general, but definitely in the middle of the night. I thought Sarah left a little while ago, so who is this? I open the door and there is Sarah, breathing fast and just staring straight into my eyes. She starts off by saying that she knows that what she did was stupid and completely unforgivable. But now she knows that nothing is worth losing me. That she somehow loves me more now than she did before, and that she didn't even know that was possible. That she wants to give me her everything, but she wants to start with her heart. I laughed at that and called her corny as fuck. I held out my hand. She took it and I brought her inside and closed the door. She finally slept over that night. After months of offering. No, we did not sleep together that night. Perverts. We spent the night talking about what this meant. How we were going to handle the inevitable fallout. Obviously we realized that everyone around us predicted this, but honestly, neither of us wanted to give them the satisfaction. Now we both agreed that while we are exclusive, this was only a trial period. We were going to test the waters and make sure there really is still a romantic spark there. That phase did not last long, it was definitely still there. Then after about 2 weeks we decided to tell her mom. She was thrilled, but she said she knew it was going to happen sooner or later. We didn't tell any of our friends. They were still hounding us about us being together, but as usual we just kept denying it. But now that we actually were, we decided to mess with their heads. We would be holding hands and then as soon as we would come around the corner we would let go. We made it obvious that we were holding hands and really just made a show of the letting go. They would try to call us out for it, but we always blamed it on tripping or we were just walking too close to each other and they didn't see it correctly. We would have private conversations in the corner of the yard and be standing way closer than two friends should stand together. We became very flirty with each other. Definitely lots of touching. It was so much fun. Everyone tried to call us out for all of it, but we just kept denying it. At one of the parties we just stopped the party and asked for everyone's attention. We told everyone that we had an announcement. Everyone thought that we were finally going to admit to it. But instead we told everyone that we wanted to address all the rumors being spread about Sarah and I. I just wanted to clear the air now, in front of everyone. In the hopes that people will please, for the love of God, just leave us alone about it. No, we are not back together. No, we will not be getting back together. Anyone involved in the bet, shame on you. Please just leave us alone about it. Yes, we were gaslighting them. And it was so much fun. We wanted to wait till the 3-month mark till we made it official. We figured that was a good amount of time to see where things actually stood between us. It had been around 1.5 years since we dated. She'd gone through a lot. And while she was still Sarah, there was still something different about her. I think it's because from time to time I could still see guilt in her eyes. Sometimes I tell her I can see it and she gets sad. I told her that she should never forget, but she can forgive. She needs to forgive herself and move on. Let's enjoy that we found each other again. And that always seems to cheer her up. So yeah, we come to the 3-month mark. We had decided one day after getting an invite to come over to Mark and Danielle's that we were finally going to make it official. We got ready and headed on over. We pulled up front, parked and started talking. We were discussing how we wanted to approach this when I noticed a single blind raise on their curtains. I saw it happen. And if I was not mistaken, someone was holding a smartphone towards us. Those assholes were trying to catch us. I let Sarah know and told her we should put on a show, then still deny it until we finally confess. Just had to get one last one in. So we leaned in and gave each other a kiss. Then we got out of the car and went into the backyard. About once a month they have a projector party. They set up a screen and a projector and we watch movies in their backyard. Easy as that. This time when we rounded the corner something just seemed different. It was like everyone was waiting for us. People were being weirdly nice. It was like the Stepford Wives. Everyone guided us over to 2 seats that were right in front of the screen. We asked everyone what was going on. They said that they wanted to commemorate the rekindling of our friendship and had a special movie just for us. We just feigned ignorance. We asked them what was going on. We said they were creeping us out, and we wanted an explanation. That's when Mark and Danielle walked outside. They walked up to the projector and plugged in their phone. Next thing we knew there was a video of us kissing in the car out front up on the screen. Everyone just roared. They started chanting, "We caught you, we caught you, we caught you." They just kept saying how we treated them like they were stupid, and how they knew all along. That we are not as sneaky as we think we are. I mean, this went on for a good 5 minutes or more. Sarah and I didn't budge. We didn't react or respond to any of their taunts. Eventually we both just started laughing. And not a chuckle or a giggle. I mean, we were laughing like we were about to fall out of our chairs laughing. Everyone slowly stopped taunting us and their faces went from excited to confused. After a little while they went from confused to annoyed. Finally, someone broke the tension and asked us what was so funny. I composed myself and told them that it's funny they think we aren't that sneaky when I literally watched them raise the blind and put their phone up there when we pulled up. I told them that maybe they should find a better way of trying to catch us. I explained that I saw this when we pulled up and told Sarah. We were getting tired of all this, so we decided to put on a show for their benefit. We wanted them to think they were right, but only for a moment. Until we could see you destroyed by the truth. We both gave evil laughs. It was an enjoyable moment. So at this point everyone is up in arms. They are calling bullshit and saying they caught us. We continue to deny it. They said I lied about seeing the blind rays. I stuck to my guns and told them that I saw it, which I actually did. After a while I could see defeat just creep over everyone's face. I looked at Sarah and she looked back and just shrugged. I stood up and said, let's put this to rest. When it comes to Sarah and I. This is the final word and this will be understood and discussed no further from here on out. I wanted to drag it out in order to see their souls break a little bit. Just crushing under the weight of their defeat. Sarah and I are back together. Everyone was so pissed. We got yelled at so much. We were called assholes and dicks. We were compared to genitalia, a lot. But once everyone got over the shock from their near-death experience, they were all very happy for us. Most of them said they knew it was only a matter of time. Some said they actually believed us, and now they are out $50. That being said, I asked who actually won the bet. They said it was a guy named Eric. Everyone just looked around wondering who this Eric was. Not a single person there knew this man. Until I walked up, said I'm actually Eric. Snatched the money out of their hands and thanked them all for the wonderful meal we were going to have on our next date night. We appreciated their contributions to the rekindling of our relationship. Before anyone could protest, I also said that they should all be ashamed of themselves for trying to exploit our love for monetary gain. And they have suffered the repercussions of their actions. Everyone just gave up at that point and just accepted their losses. No one even questioned how I even made that bet in the first place. They will never know. That was about a year and a half ago. Sarah and I are still going strong. We have a completely open door policy. We have 100% access to each other's devices. This was Sarah's idea, but she wanted it to be for her to me. I insisted that it would only be fair if I did the same. I have nothing to hide. We do wellness checks with each other each week. We still have a healthy love life. It's actually better than it's ever been. Sarah did officially move in. She also has a job. It's nothing great, but it's stable. I no longer see those traces of guilt in her eyes. She seems very happy and so am I. We did end up getting back on the topic of marriage one day. And Sarah's views had changed. She said she finally saw what it was talking about and understands that if we had been married and gone through all of that, it would have been much messier and much more expensive. That the whole experience was a clear reminder that everything is finite in this world. That she didn't care how we spent the rest of our lives together, just that we did spend them together. I kissed her and said I loved her. We never talked about it again. Now what she doesn't know is that I made a promise. It was a promise I made a long, long time ago. It was the day I ran into her at the food court. As I was walking away, I was having all sorts of conflicting feelings, internal arguments. I couldn't really keep my thoughts straight. But there was one that stood out to me. And it was, what if you get back together? Wouldn't that be crazy? I tried to get that out of my mind as fast as possible, saying it won't happen. But my mind kept wandering back to it. So I just decided to entertain it. I told myself that say I did forgive her and I rediscover my love for her. What would I do if that happened? Am I even ready for something like that to happen? But in case it does, I will still marry her. I knew how I felt about her before. I was willing to step out of my comfort zone for her on multiple occasions. And those choices always brought me happiness. So how could doing this now not bring me happiness? See, she doesn't know that I still have the original ring. And I plan on proposing soon. And I plan on making it equally romantic and embarrassing. She still has the clothes I saw her wearing the day at the mall. And I still have the outfit I wore. Yes, I still remember what we were both wearing. Only thing is I don't have those shoes anymore. But I don't really see that as a problem. The day that we reconnected is coming up. I didn't bring it up last year, but I decided I wanted to make it a special day this year. So I'm going to wear my same outfit and I'm going to lay hers out for her. She is definitely not going to want to wear it out to dinner, which is what I told her we were doing tonight, but I will eventually convince her to put it on and wear it out. She will want to know where we are going to dinner, and I will just keep telling her it is a surprise. That will annoy her a little bit. She will already be grumpy from having to wear that outfit. I will pull up to the mall. At this point she will be grumpy, annoyed and confused. I have created the perfect storm. At this point she will start to demand to know what's going on. I will tell her we are going to get dinner. She will argue against this, but eventually, I will get her to go into the mall for dinner. I will take her to the table she was sitting at, and sit her down in the same seat. I will tell her to stay there and I will be right back. I will go to the Chinese food place and get her the same fried rice and iced tea. I am hoping at this point she does not catch on to the theme. If she doesn't, she will now be pissed that I just got food without asking her what she wanted. I will come back and put the tray down in front of her. She will want to know what is up. Just an FYI, I know Sarah pretty well. So while I am making a lot of guess here as to what her reactions will be, it is based off years of study. I am an expert on this woman. And as the authority, my guesses might as well be a scientific law. So like I said, she will want to know what's going on. That or she will have picked up on something being familiar. It's a 50-50th chance for each. Either way, I will just start going into it. I will tell her how 2 years ago today I was walking through the mall, and there she was. The woman who I once loved, who I had not seen in over a year, and she is just sitting there in front of me. And while I should have avoided her, I just could not help but be drawn back in. I sat down and she didn't know what to do. She was wearing that same outfit, and this is what I was wearing. And she was picking at that fried rice. We talked. I offered to join her in therapy. We parted and I walked away. That is when I will lead her to where I turned around and watched as she shoveled several large spoonfuls of fried rice into her mouth before she threw it away and ran out the door. Then I will walk her down to the spot where I made the promise to myself. I will tell her about that promise. And this is where I will propose. Now I know that the middle of the mall while she is wearing super baggy sweats is not exactly the most romantic, but it is super embarrassing, which is honestly more of what I'm going for. She will be pissed, but she will be too happy to care. I know she will say yes. I have no doubts. Me and her have been through a lot together. Yes, I do trust her. She has given me no reason to believe she is unfaithful. She still offers to let me use or see her phone whenever I want. I don't check its messages or anything, but I will admit that it does help with the trust knowing she is so open with her personal devices. Well, that is it. That is our story. I know that there will be those people who will think I am crazy for taking her back. Those who will scream once a cheater, always a cheater, and other such things. To believe in that is to believe that people do not deserve a second chance. But I can almost guarantee that every single one of you has needed a second chance at something in your life. It's about understanding and compassion. Did my girlfriend cheat on me? Yes. And while I don't condone it or like it at all, I can at least understand her mindset when she became a slave to her insecurities. I once lived in a very lonely world that I thought I would never escape. I had given up on happiness. And then I met Sarah. She changed everything. I didn't get healthy for her, but she stuck by me while I got healthy for myself. And that meant the world to me. Everyone else in my life left me because of my poor behavior. But she could see past that and gave me every tool I needed to get better. And now I have done the same for her. We really do complement each other perfectly. Sorry if you don't understand or can't accept it. But it is what it is. Nothing is going to stop this. Love will prevail. Several weeks ago I came across a Reddit cheating story on YouTube. Never listened to one before, but I was interested. I got sucked in. I started listening to more. The more I did, the more I started creating a story in my head. My therapist suggests I write it down. I was unsure of this at first, but decided to do it anyway. After I was done, I actually felt happy with it. I knew I wasn't the best storyteller, but I didn't think I did a half-bad job for an amateur. I don't know why I decided to post it to Reddit, but I do not regret my decision. I thought I might get a few people reading, but wow. The amount of people upvoting, following and commenting on my story was way more than I expected. Thank you all so much for your support and encouragement. You have given me a bit more confidence in my storytelling ability. I will try to think of more and share when I can. They will more than likely stay in the area of fake Reddit stories. Again, thank you everyone for taking the time to read my story. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and hit that subscribe button to follow cheating love stories for more amazing videos. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.